Hey, friend. Happy Wednesday. So good to see you. I hope you are having an amazing start to the week. I know it is crazy to me that it's already March. Maybe it is crazy to you as well, but we're in it and we are in it together, and that makes it all the more fun. If you're here with us live, I love that for you. I love that you made time in your schedule today. If it's your first time around these parts, the chat is kind of where it's at. You're going to see me and Shelby and Ian and Aaron. We're all going to be having a conversation over here. We would love for you to join in. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcast network while you walk the dog or fold the laundry or do the dishes, have no fear. You still have a seat at this very cozy coffee table. And if you have any questions or comments or tips or tactics that you use that you want to share with me or with our guest today, Ian, well, we'd love to hear it. And I know Sierra and Jeff and Jim would love to hear it too. So you can always come back around to the comments section, let us know what it is, or you can send us a message or carrier pigeon or email or DM, whatever your message of choice is. We are here for that. And you might have noticed over the last couple weeks, your friend Kim has gone down a bit of an AI rabbit hole. I've gone down a rabbit hole of conversations and agents, and I downloaded Replit, and I've been playing with that. And I went up to the Pro on Claude. So now I'm paying for Claude. I'm paying for ChatGPT. Somebody just told me I have to get on Grok. Who knows? As you can tell over these last couple of weeks, I have gone down the AI rabbit hole. And like all good rabbit holes, I also dive into learning pretty extensively. So lucky for you, I've done a lot of that rabbit hole digging for us. And one of the courses that I just totally fell in love with over on LinkedIn Learning is this Introduction to Conversational AI with Ian. And he just made everything for me seem so much more approachable, so much less scary, quite frankly, because I think a lot of the stuff that's in the media now is like, the robots are coming. We're all going to be jobless and dying in a ditch somewhere while the robots live their best life. So I watched this course and connected with him and started following him, and just, I don't know, he made me feel less scared about the future. And really, I love that he talks about kind of outcomes and impact as opposed to just like AI can help you with tasks. Anyway, I really liked him. And so if I really liked him, I feel like you're really going to like him. So hopefully you have done your background Google stalking on all things Ian. But what you need to know today is basically our really smart friend when it comes to AI has RSVP'd yes to our coffee chat, which is the most exciting news for us. So without further ado, please raise whatever caffeine item of choice you have in your mug today and help me welcome Ian to our coffee chat. Yay!
Thank you, Kim. That was an outstanding introduction. I think it's all downhill from here. I don't think I'm ever going to do another live stream. That was really lovely.
It's true.
And thanks for having me. I've loved watching your content and your energy and how you help and educate and energize for years. So it's long time listener, first time guest, I suppose.
Well, I'm really excited, and I wasn't kidding. I feel like you make me less scared about the future. And I know that a lot of the mainstream media is very clickbaity. Mm-hmm. So by the way, that's true of all of their clickbait, headlines. But I just feel like so much of the headlines around AI are like, jobs deceasing, like, self-driving cars, like just everything is sort of this like doom and gloom. And I feel like you have a really positive little angle on the internet, which is hard to say because I feel like sometimes the internet is not positive at all. But I feel like you just have a really positive little corner of the internet, which is like, let's not be scared of this. And I love that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it comes from, because this is the sort of, I've been at this for a long time, sort of context setting lead in, but the automation in general has been with us for. I used to say we've been automating since the wheel, so it's been there for a long time. We've been using mechanical and now digital tools to enhance and supercharge that which we do. That's not new. The certainly the volume, as you said, has picked up to just a cacophonous, deafening amount or level, and a lot of it's just sort of Silicon Valley powered that they can get a message
Right.
like nobody else. And then some of it's just about the channel. I mean, I find myself doom scrolling like the best of us, watching a whole bunch of tech bros talk about how they've replaced absolutely everything with AI agents that do all the things. And a lot of that feels like clickbait, as you said. It's more for audience than in actuality a functional thing that they've developed yet.
Exactly. And so I would love for you to kind of break down because I feel like we have a wide range of people that are joining us. Actually, I'd
Sure.
love if anybody live in the chat can kind of say, like, on a scale of 1 to 5, one, I've never played with AI, and 5 being like, yes, I play with it every day, kind of where everybody is. But for
Mm.
anybody who's listening, who maybe is on the one end of that spectrum, what is even just the difference between sort of conversational AI and the agents? Because I also feel like agents is a word that is starting to come into play more. And I do have a few friends who are like, what the heck is that?
Yeah. I get a kick out of the fact that agentic wasn't a word, and now it's all we seem to be using. I'll start from the beginning, which is AI. I was just on a discussion yesterday where someone was saying we need to use it. Right? It's we need to use it in the business, and I said hopefully that AI isn't an it. It is not a thing. So so don't worry. It's intensely confusing. It's actually a term that's been with us for 70 years, and it's a collection of capabilities that we all sort of fit under this one category. So, and you touched on it. There were certain examples of where AI can help us do research faster, right? That's pretty awesome now. Just the large language models, the Chat GPTs, the Groks, the Claudes, and then the other end of that scale is AI that not only pulls down information and extracts it and looks at it and interprets it, but then actually does work. And that's where the agent side of things is. Um, the way to put it somewhat simply is, in the old days, and this is changing, but Chat GPT could write you an email, but it couldn't send it.
Right.
And so that idea of AI on one end is doing this creation that we will get into later, more of just you got to be real careful about just fully trusting it, but it gets you started. And then there's the other end, this agent concept, which is now the ability for some of these AI algorithms to execute tasks for you. Um, and conversational AI is one of those elements sort of in the middle where it's an AI that can listen to sounds and interpret them or look at words and figure out what they mean. So when you're typing into one of those little windows in the bottom corner of a website and you ask it a basic question about why your cell phone plan is not working or how many vacation days you have or whatever you're asking it, in the old days it used to be terrible. Right?
Yeah.
Those models were really painful, and these days they're better, and they are really just interpreting both the meaning of the words, the intent behind the string of words, and then hopefully going off somewhere where the information they have to pull from is accurate, and then feeding you back what it thinks is the right answer.
Well, and I think what's really interesting is when we think about sort of the AI agents that can start to like take action. So
Mhm.
you gave the example of like, okay, they're not just writing the email, they're sending the email,
Yeah.
or they're not just looking up car washes in a 4 mile radius of your house. They're then booking,
Right.
you a full detailed car wash next Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
Yes.
So actually like taking that one step. So for anybody that might be joining us that either they themselves are currently in the workplace or maybe they are an intern or they're first starting out of
Mhm.
college and looking to get a job, what kind of roles do you think are going to become more valuable in an AI enabled world? Because I do think that there is a programmer, I hate to say it,
Yeah.
might not be as needed if the AIs are able to program entire things for us. So I'm just curious, because like you're in the thick of it, what roles are you seeing that are going to still be very much a forward-facing role?
So we have 4 hours left on this live stream, right? So
Correct.
good. Okay,
4
perfect.
minutes and 13 seconds.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so much depth to the question, and there's a lot of depth to any form of answer. So where to start? So ultimately, you're right. So programmers, there's the whole idea of we won't need software programmers anymore. I remember I spoke to a computer science grad from Harvard at the very first LLM hackathon that I went to, and this was like 3 years ago now. And this kid was having, in his own words, an existential crisis as to whether he had just wasted his whole education becoming a computer science grad. But there is still an intense amount of value to the way he was taught to think and break down problems and go about designing the answers or the solutions or the products or the services. And so I think that's still really fundamental. So some of the coders will be supercharged. You can do a whole lot more coding than you ever could, much faster. But also, you need some context to know what of that is a new word that's popped up a lot. What if that is slop, which is just not good and not useful. Now, as far as what sort of skills you need, I think it's still always safe to say some of the skills you need, you can hopefully you bring, or you can gather rather quickly. Some of the skills you gather over time. The ones you bring or have are skills around just judgment, empathy, communication, understanding of the audience, right? This is a solution or service to support a customer or an employee or a patient, and a lot of that's still superhuman. And so you need to understand that. A lot of that was wrapped into concepts like design thinking in the past, where you'd use tons of Post-its and whiteboards and you'd break down a problem. That's still where humans excel and will continue to. The other half of that is around domain expertise, where you just know your craft. And so if you're in anything, if you're in accounting, if you're in shipping and logistics, if you're in legal and procurement, if you've done it for a while, you understand inherently the things you do. And that's invaluable too, just because you're not going to throw AI at an uncertain or bad process and have it produce anything of value. And so those skills are still useful. Unfortunately, to make my answer longer, one of the things I'm keeping an eye on is the bottom of the pyramid. The entry level jobs seem to be challenged now by this AI, where I'll have a friend who has an investment company that used to have 5 interns and now they have 2, because they can get more done and those 2 interns are able to be supercharged. That's great for those 2, but not great for the 3 who don't get on that career ladder and learn from the mailroom on up, right? Doing grungy data collection or just whatever entry level, sort of grunge you have to do that teaches you your craft. And so we just need to be really careful about losing some of those entry level skill development opportunities.
Well, and I feel like you really hit the nail on the head. It's really honing that judgment, like sharpening that pencil. And the only way that you get good at judgment is to mess up and see it a bunch. And I feel like that's one of the things that you are sort of always kind of beating the drum about, is really focusing on outcomes and impact, as opposed to just tasks. Because to your point earlier, you can throw AI, at a workflow, but if something is inefficient or outdated, then like, what's the point? Like, what have you done? So I know Jeff was asking, and I actually had somebody message me earlier being like, be sure to ask Ian about workflows. So what are your thoughts on workflows? Because I think, again, a lot of people are just thinking, oh, I'll just throw AI at it. But if you have an inefficient workflow, then that's not going to work.
So this is the premise behind what I'm doing now. I've spent the last sort of 15 years playing with various forms of automation, helping enterprises understand A, what it is, B, how to prepare for it, and then C, then how to leverage it and make the most of it and measure the impact and outcomes from it. And workflows, and this is it's a longer answer, but I mean, workflows, anything that happens in a company is made up of tasks, sequences, processes, then ultimately sort of jobs, functions, departments, right? So you can distill it down to little bits. We've long talked about automating tasks, like those atomic levels of, I hate extracting data from these forms and putting it in these systems. All right, cool.
Right.
We can automate those with forms of AI, like some of it's intelligent document processing that looks at a PDF and understands it and can extract things. And those tools are getting better and better. End-to-end workflow then couples together a bunch of tasks, makes them into sequences, makes them into processes. And one of the challenges is, are you ready for it? And a lot of people are always talking about AI powered and AI first organizations. And I assert that most organizations, frankly, all organizations, I'll make a bold statement and hopefully, and prove me wrong. But my bold statement is, no organization is AI ready. And what I mean by that is, you don't know your workflow. You don't have it documented. You haven't really thought about it at an atomic level. You haven't then looked at it through an automation lens, knowing all the different capabilities available to you today, to then redesign it in a way that's ready for automating. And so there's a huge amount of value in just good housekeeping and just putting in the hard work and the boring work sometimes to be AI ready, to understand what your workflow is supposed to produce or achieve. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're just paving cow paths. Otherwise, you're just looking at the thing you do now and saying, I can replace this step with an automation. When do you even need the workflow? But to the question, you absolutely can use it's always a combination. There's never one silver bullet tool that does everything, because all
Right.
workflows, they include ingestion of data, interpretation of it, moving of data
Well,
from
and that
systems.
judgment piece that you
Yeah,
talked
and the
about
judgment
before,
piece.
like,
Exactly.
and what are we using this for?
Yep.
I have a nosy question,
Ooh,
which is,
nosy. Okay.
obviously you've worked with like a lot of individuals, but then also a lot of companies. And for anybody that's joining that might work at a company, or selfishly like myself,
Mhm.
an entrepreneur, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making when they try to introduce AI into their workflow? Like, is
Mm.
there something that you just see from a mile away and you're just like, that emoji where it's like face palm, like you're just like, no, like, why are they doing that?
So I've got a wife and 2 daughters, so I get that emoji at me a lot.
Yes.
So I'm familiar. So for the last 15 years, I've watched product fascination. I've watched silver bullet and hammer for all nails kinds of approaches,
Yeah.
where it's shiny, it's new, it's exciting, and I'm told that it works, and so we're going to just use it. And I equate that. I mean, solving your problem through a new tool is not solving your problem. I joke that I'm out of shape, so I bought a treadmill. I'm still out of shape because I don't use the treadmill. I don't have a
Correct.
habit. I haven't developed a process around it. And so I do see a lot of people with short attention spans, probably for just the sake of healing. They forget the last experiment that failed, and they move on to the next one and the next one because, oh my goodness, did you hear about Claude Code now? Have you heard about Replit? Have you heard about whatever? And so it's exciting as all get out. And I agree. I'm as excited as the next person. I'm also as anxious as the next person about this. But you can't solve, back to the AI ready thing. You can't solve your problem by just layering an exciting new tool on top of what isn't ready
Right.
yet to receive it.
Yeah, I love that idea of just, you can't just add things to the mix because it looks fun and shiny and sexy and new. And I love this point that Stella makes, which is really, she was saying that I'm a translator.
Mm.
And although AI can translate, there are
Right.
some decisions around context or, past events that require human knowledge. So I think it's a further point what you were saying about like that judgment
Yes.
skill is going to be really helpful.
There's always the additional thing you want to do, know you should do or could do, but don't have time to do. And so I see that as an opportunity too, because here some of it is AI translating is good enough in a generic sense, but it misses nuance and cultural misalignment if you misinterpret a word, and so you can do that. And then there's the broader of just sort of being more of an advisor and a collaborative partner with your customer in this case, to help them to really think about communications and how they're working with or between parties. There's I used to call it the extra hour situation, where is whenever I'd work with a client and I'd ask them, what would you do if you had an extra hour in your day? Never would they say, nothing, we're good. We've got it all covered. An extra hour would be great. We'll just go home early. It's never the case. There's always something more proactive or more value adding or more sort of human that they never have time to get to. And you need to look at this opportunity through that lens and think about what you can now do thanks to AI augmenting you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because I feel like I'm like that. And I know a lot of people that join every week, like James and Aaron, who are with us today. Like, I know they're like this too, which is, you're right. Like, if we do have an extra hour, we are nerding out. Like, we are going and looking up what some of these words mean or what some of these new programs are. And so, I know you also touched on the like sexy syndrome of like, just following the bouncing ball wherever it goes, because there are so many bouncing balls that one could follow. Where do you think professionals should invest their time in learning right now? Like, is there a specific lane that you tell people like, okay, I know there's a million choices, but maybe start here?
Yeah. That's getting harder and harder to answer. Yes, it really is.
Yeah.
And you touched on it in the intro as far as the tools that you're playing with. Some of it is build a habit of experimentation, right? Which
Mhm.
is what you're doing. Just play with certain tools just to have them in your vocabulary, just to know that they're available, and then place them where they make sense to be placed. So, for instance, you mentioned Replit, any of these vibe coding tools. So that's sort of the far end of capabilities, where you're just, for those who aren't familiar, you're just prompting. You're just prompting is a new hype word, but you're literally
Yeah.
you're speaking to your computer in the language you're most comfortable with, which happens to be whether it's English or French or Spanish or whatever, but it's your language, and you speak to this this website and describe for it what it is that you'd like to have built as far as a software tool. Now, is it ready to pump out and become your new CRM tool or your new payroll tool or your new whatever? No. I mean, you can try it, have fun, but what it is incredibly powerful at doing is helping to accelerate and facilitate brainstorming and discussions. And so back to the whole Post-its and whiteboards, that was how we used to say, right, I'm in accounts payable and my job is painful because systems don't connect, data isn't there, whatever. I'd really wish we could have and it was always a struggle. Now you can prototype it and you can say like this, something like this would make my life a whole lot easier. And so those are good practices to get into, is the ability to communicate what your ideas are and what your need is, powered by your domain expertise. Again, back to, this field, so you know what you would like to have. And then your ability to interact with the multiple stakeholders in your business, because IT's got to be involved. They should still be involved. You can't do this by yourself. And so I think that's a powerful place to start, is use this to facilitate transformational discussions of what could we do different and better based on what you know about what you struggle with day in and day out.
Yeah, well, and I know for myself, like one of the things that I try to focus on is really the framework
Hmm.
that I'm trying to make a decision by, because if not, I will chase all the bouncing balls. I'll be like, what's this? What's this? What's this?
Yep.
So like I'll use myself as an example, but one of the frameworks that I try to apply is like every Friday I'll set aside like an hour or two to, play with something. 2 Fridays ago, which is why I was using Replit, I was like, okay, the framework is going to be, it has to be something to help my marketing agency.
Yeah.
And so it was building something for Bread Ideas Only, my marketing agency, that it was going to help. But then like last Friday, I was like, well, I also do a lot of writing, LinkedIn posts,
Yep.
et cetera. I was like, let me play around specifically with a couple different tools or ways around writing. So I have to sort of apply a framework, because if not, I'll just start kind of like bouncing all over the place. And it sounds like Aaron, who's joining us, kind of has a similar thing. And one of the things that he was focusing on was sort of business and a collaborator workflow. One, I wanted to ask a question about what frameworks you use. And then second, to Aaron's point, have you played with anything around a collaborator workflow before?
So tools I use, and they sort of evolve, and this is certainly not a set of recommendations, because who am I to say that they're the right ones? Obviously, the LLMs themselves, the ChatGPTs, the Claudes, the Groks. I used to use ChatGPT a lot more. I'm now using Claude quite often, because frankly, I'm kind of blown away by what it does.
I've heard that.
And then the other thing is, you got to play with them enough. And this is always, I find this impossible to believe. Again, sort of TikTok videos, doom scrolling, where people talk about which one they use for what task, and another one they use for a different task. And like, how do you have enough hour in your day to do that sort of testing and know how they're different? But you do it enough. TikTok, not TikTok. Don't get off of TikTok. Don't use TikTok. But ChatGPT helps me to do some research and to explore some things. Claude helps me write more, to your point. And you're doing it again. You're doing it to create an outcome, to help you to channel more of yourself and your domain expertise and your energy. But you also, and hopefully this sort of percolates down to younger generations, I imagine you still bring your judgment and intuition and skepticism to the game, so that you don't just accept, hit send, and publish without reading the thing. Because that's a big risk that we have, of just this cognitive offloading, where people just sort of trust what's coming out of these devices and then stop actually thinking, which I've seen. I have people send me stuff, and the easy tell now is that they're just a bunch of M dashes in it. But
yes.
But you read it and you think, I don't feel like you read this. So please go back and read it again, because just because you can produce something fast doesn't mean that you're producing something well, or that your brain is plugged in as you do it. So that's a real risk people need to personally be aware of. And then if you're running a business, you have to absolutely be on top of, is how to avoid zombie worker syndrome, where you just turn off your brain. As far as collaborator workflow, I need more clarification. What is a collaborator workflow?
Okay, Aaron, make some more details around Ian for us. And in the meantime, we'll go to Christy's question for Ian, which is for someone that's currently looking for employment in product or project management, which is definitely a pretty big field.
Yeah.
What AI classes would be the most valuable to learn to help me with getting a job? So
Yep.
The question is really around project management, AI classes. What could help with doing that better?
That's great. So, Christy, the good news is, I've heard other people explain it this way, and I believe it too, that this era is really the renaissance for product management. And ultimately what that means is, you have, if you've spent your career in product management, you have sat between the customer or end user and engineering or IT or whomever is building the thing. And so it's then, this is sort of like a translation thing. It's then left to you to translate between them what it is their true pains are, what their needs are, what you believe would be a viable product for engineering to build. And then usually engineering goes, that's cute, but we're going to do it this way because we think this is right or better. And so you're sort of left fighting both sides. Now you really can prototype and go so far as to almost fully build the answers that you know would be the right ones for your end customer. So to your question, I mean, ultimately, just basic prompting is really valuable, but I think that's just like basic communication. Right? Projects always failed because communication, because stakeholders didn't speak to like contributors or what have you. Prompting is no different. You need to learn how to articulate your needs and what it is you want out of this. Then move to, I mean, Replit a good one, move to one of these vibe coding tools, knowing full well that it is a prototyping tool more than a production tool, but it allows you to turn your understanding of someone's needs into visuals in a way that is far quicker and far more powerful than anything you've ever had in your toolkit. And that is, at least allows you to show, you know, that you're AI savvy, that you're vibe savvy, and I think will serve you very well. And then you still have to work with IT, because more often than not, you're going to hand them a visual image that's a MVP, if you will, but they still need to rock up and do back end, data security and compliance and scalability and other things to make any of these tools fit for purpose to be launched more broadly.
Yeah. And I would just add, Christy, I know you were speaking specifically about classes, and, obviously Ian and I are going to say LinkedIn Learning because we're biased, because we have,
you're right. Yeah.
Because we have courses on there. But I would also say, Christy, that I think what is really helpful, and again, I'll just speak for myself, is following people like Ian, like Dave Burst. Like I also think I think a lot of times we think like a traditional class, like I have to sit at a computer for like 50 minutes and like learn, which is true. Love that. But you can also learn in like bite-sized amounts, like people's posts and like little videos. LinkedIn has on their mobile app, that video section now. Sometimes I get a lot of like weird, quirky tips from that too. So I don't even think it necessarily, or newsletters, obviously. Or podcast. I don't think it has to necessarily be like a class in like the traditional term.
Yeah, that's really well put. I mean, I totally agree. I mean, LinkedIn Learning is an amazing resource and everyone should check it out, especially Kim's classes. But you're right that, first of all, none of us has time to really tuck into a 10-hour long course anymore. And it's really distracting anyway to try to focus and get through that. But more importantly, it's that sort of micro learning that sort of addresses the specific need you're facing, the challenge that's in front of you. That is best served by trying things, by tinkering, by watching these short videos.
1,000%. No, I feel like that's just really, I love that. Also, we have a comment from Molly, who's asking Ian, do you have any comments on successes or fails with vendor tools that have AI enablement as a feature? And I've definitely seen this. I feel like now everybody's website and I joke that, like, I don't know if you remember 10 years ago, Ian, when all of a sudden it was cool to be organic. And then like everything that got marketed was like, it's organic, like it's organic green food. And it's even like my pest control company. Oh my gosh, actually, even my dry cleaner that's like a couple blocks from my house, they have a sticker on their door that's like organic dry cleaning. Like all of a sudden then just like everything got the organic symbol and you're like, organic dry cleaning. Like I didn't even know that was a thing.
That's tasty. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like who knew? I totally agree with Molly on this. Now I feel like a lot of people are just slapping like, powered by AI or like AI enabled on stuff. What have you seen, or do you have any comments on that in terms of what you're seeing in business?
I have too many comments on that, Kim. But I mean, I started my career in a consulting firm that billed itself as e-business strategy consulting. It collapsed when the .bomb collapsed. The good output of it is I met my wife there. So that was probably the most impactful thing about that. But so it was e-business at one point in time. So that was having an internet, having a website and using the internet. The digital labor, robotic process automation kind of concept reared its head about 10 to 12 years ago. Now the agentic, the AI element or the AI agent element is everywhere. And it creates what I refer to as sort of accidental agentic adoption, in so much as every tool you use has it somewhere in it, right? I mean, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce or probably StreamYard or anything else, they all have agents now in it that you didn't choose to add to the mix, but they're just there. And there is some value in it. It certainly it's a safe or a very discreet way for you to start to play with their capabilities. So I think it's only natural. And as you said, they're trying to just compete with the most recent sort of buzzword that the hype machine seems to be adding value to or putting value on. But bring skepticism to the party at all times, because in a lot of cases, first of all, in a lot of cases, you don't need AI. And then, and in many cases, it is not AI. So back to what is the point? What are you actually trying to achieve? And does that particular tool or service help you achieve it?
Well, I feel like sometimes we make a big circle back to your original point of like judgment. Like sometimes even when people are asking me like, which AI thing, I'm always like, let's back up.
Yeah.
And like, what are you actually trying to solve for?
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to, and I feel like even just that backup process and sort of using the judgment on like, does this even need a fresh coat of paint, if you will, like is a bigger question.
Yeah. And there's always sort of gearheads. There's always people who want to talk about, how much horsepower or torque or something else a particular tool has. I don't have any patience or time for it, and I can't remember. And honestly, the speed at which this stuff's coming out, as we've been talking, I'm sure there are 3 new models that are so much better than the last embarrassing models that I used this morning. You can't keep up with it. And ultimately, humans and human systems don't change that fast anyway.
Right.
I used to, in the process automation space 10, 12 years ago, I would joke that everyone was always talking about how fast this was changing, but you couldn't convince me it was changing that fast when it took a client of ours 6 months to procure a server on which to host the pilot. Right? So there's still just the underlying dynamics of the world of work that, experiment all you want, but also don't worry, calm down.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And it's not changing so fast. Your jobs are not toast, and there is still a lot of value in you and the tools
1,000%. And I love this sort of like psychological question or twist on it. So if anybody listening to this is really feeling sort of an AI fatigue, like, okay, enough already about the newest and greatest and, 7.5 version that just came out. How do you yourself handle sort of AI fatigue? Do you have any sort of guardrails in place or things that you use that have been helpful?
Just slow breathing. I mean, it really is just overwhelming. And again, if you doom scroll on anything and watch all these hype artists talk about how, did you see the thing that just came out this morning? I've just built 10 companies with it, and if you don't use it, you're doomed. I mean, yeah, you need breaks and slow breathing, but also just to remind yourself that that it really is not. If you are at that point where you do have anxiety, you're part of the very small, lucky few that are that sort of cutting edge, right? The algorithm is feeding you all this stuff. It means you've been looking. It means you're more informed than most. So you should take that as a good sign, but also really focus again. Always focus back on the fundamentals of are we ready? Should I focus on like getting the foundation stones laid, and ultimately, just bringing human to the problem and emphasizing judgment and empathy and understanding and product management, that sort of mindset. That's going to help you win no matter how fast or how many cycles or horsepower the next model has, because it's been the very powerful point as far as they're all built on the same AI infrastructure. I mean, they are, that's an insightful comment. And so there are a billion AI startups right now. It is impossible to keep track of them. And that's also, to your point, with the discussion, anytime I'm in a discussion of any form, people ask me if I've heard of, and the chance is really high that the answer is no, because there's so many of them. And if they're process first and problem first, then maybe they're a good new entrant into the space. But don't define success by knowing the thousands of new entrants in the space.
Well, and again, it's sort of that what's the quote where it's like something of something, master of none? Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
It's going to come to us, but maybe somebody else can fill us in. I'm having a brain fart, but I do think that, like you were talking earlier about Claude, that's one of the strategies that I've used with like the AI fatigue is I'm like, okay, I'm not going to download whatever, the newest and greatest, whatever. I'm just going to go deep. Like, okay, I'm just going to play with Claude. I can play with Claude in different ways. Like maybe one day I play with Claude in terms of writing. Maybe one day I play with Claude in terms of helping me come out with a workout plan for like weightlifting, you know, but I stay on the same one. So I would just sort of add that to the mix of like AI fatigue. I also think can be found because you're jumping, you're almost like scatterbrained, like that. Sometimes just like picking one and going deep and continuing to just play with that one is big. Oh my gosh, thank God for James. James is like jack of all trades. That's it. Jack of all trade, master of none. So I would also say that is helpful.
Right. Well, and back to it's like a liberal arts education taught you how to learn, right? Computer science education teaches you how to think through a problem, right? It's more of the approach and the framework, as you said, that you bring to the table. And to some degree, these things are converging enough that I don't know any other languages, so this is not fair of me to use this as an example. But if you learn one language, then you can learn others because you understand just sentence structure and grammar and things like that. So as you said, pick one tool, get comfortable with it. Don't have tool envy because that'll only waste your time. And what you're doing also is challenge yourself to really engage with it. So don't do those one-shot prompts of build me a workout routine and then it just pumps something out and you hit print, right?
Right.
Work on it to say, okay, you know, I'm a certain age, you know, a certain weight, gender. I like this. I don't like that, and keep working it because that's the behaviors you want to be developing. Is how to work with this augmentation that will supercharge you in all walks of life, both personal and professional.
Exactly. I would just say like keep playing with the same. Pick one. Get monogamous about your AI platforms, okay? Stop sleeping around.
That's right. This got real interesting real fast. I like that.
You know,
that's the clip that we should post online.
Exactly.
Totally agree.
Those are always the ones that go viral, anyways. So you're like, oh, fine.
Yep. So just AI polygamy seems interesting, but it only ends up being harder to manage.
Right. It only ends up being harder for everyone involved.
Jeffrey had posted a question about AI generated content not being copyrightable, which is a really interesting thing, especially for content creators and things. I want to use this to talk about myself, Jeffrey. Thank you. I wrote a book 2 years ago about this idea of democratization, where technology was getting easier to use and people were becoming more comfortable with technology. And so that inflection point created all of these creators, all of these, it was called citizen development at the time. Now we're using vibe coding to describe it. But the point is, when I signed the contract with the publisher, there was this last paragraph slapped in there. Clearly, the lawyers had sprinted to add this to it that basically said, you can't use AI to write this darn book. And it was for that reason. So if you're still working through, formal channels with publishers, or you're, in this case, Jeffrey, you're probably referring also to code. If you're building your software product with code that's generated by AI, you do need to be really careful about the downstream implications of who owns what you've just developed, which is a case for human in the loop still. I would argue we're still very useful as humans, and we need to be in the loop anyway, other than to be slap police and make sure that it's not just LLM generated garbage, but we also, for that reason, need to stay involved so that it is a product we own and a product that we can make money off of, or at least copyright patent.
No, I definitely think it'll be really interesting. You know, I was just listening to one of the NPR podcasts. I'm forgetting which one because I subscribe to several of them, and they were talking about how in the Billboard Hot 100 there's an AI artist
Oh,
that's
okay.
already in there, which that's a whole can of worms in there. But yeah, it's wild.
That kind of makes me sad.
I
Just,
know.
I guess I'm just sort of an old person who just people who do anything, right? People who create content
Yeah.
online or create courses or write books or write music or act in a movie. They really work very hard at their trade. And so to be able to rapidly reproduce them for gimmick and cute sort of experimentation where people had like a great ape and a polar bear talking to each other about something, it's okay. But if you're fully replacing us with synth generated stuff, that's sad.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
No.
No.
I don't want to do it.
I hope that our instinct, like I hope sort of from like a evolutionary biological sense, we're able to sniff out that which is not human. Right. The thing that kept us safe in caves. I'm hoping we're able to still pick out that like that wasn't written by a person. It's getting harder and harder, but I'm still hoping that we can pick the stuff out a little bit.
No, I totally agree. I feel like also maybe it's like a self puffing up, but I also feel like I can tell when things are AI written, at least for now, versus with a real human with a real personality. And there's a couple newsletters that shall remain nameless that I had to unsubscribe from recently just because I was like, I'm not feeling this anymore. It's feeling too regurgitated. It's feeling too generalized. But I'm curious because as someone like yourself who kind of for work also has to consume a lot of latest and greatest, are there podcasts or newsletters or things that you really sort of get excited to open and read?
This is back to the just the glut of stuff now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's sort of the entrepreneurial sort of push AI sort of all in podcast or others where they are. I do sadly spend too much time on social media and watching those short videos where people do share. So there's various influencers there whose names elude me because who remembers anything that they saw on a TikTok video? They just scroll to the next one.
Correct.
There's some solid Substacks. And actually, a co-author of mine for that book, Tom Davenport, has a really good Substack now where he's evaluating just the implications of AI and just wrote a really good blog on whether we should slow down advancement in AI, all the while recognizing that that's an impossible wish in some cases, but it might be going too fast. I do turn into our colleagues and friends at LinkedIn Learning. They really are pumping out this content quite quickly, and they're by folks who are at the coalface, as the Brits say, really in the trenches, doing the experimentation and playing with this. And so I turn to them for their experience because I just don't have time in my day to day to be rolling my sleeves up and playing with this stuff as closely as I'd like to.
No, 1,000%. I feel like you really just have to streamline as much as you can, because if not, it's like drinking out of a fire hose, which we're already doing enough of in our day jobs. We don't need to add on top of that.
And it's in the challenge again is how to discern that which is accurate and useful and that which is just there for clicks and sensationalism. And there's plenty of that, and that's the stuff that really is anxiety causing, where I feel like I'm falling further and further behind. So I tend to like to lean on some more grizzled experts who've been in the field for a while.
Oh no, 1,000%. So around these parts, I sort of alluded to it many times, but we love homework. We're like nerds. We love us some good homework assignments. So I'm curious if you wanted to give us a homework assignment, what is something that you think that somebody could like do or download or try or read or listen to after this session that you feel like will just help them immensely when it comes to diving into the world of AI and their jobs and careers?
Yeah. But I think first and foremost is just define your motivation, right? Why do you want this? Right? What would be better? I mean, some of it's just to prototype and gin up cool apps for your family, for meal planning, for trip planning, that sort of stuff. Or is it for work? There's a really big and deep discussion around, the phrase of you're not going to lose your job to AI, you're going to lose it to somebody using AI.
Yes.
I've got all sorts of problems with that statement, but it's directionally interesting. It creates the appropriate fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but ultimately that goes in assuming that your job is going to be there and the same, and somebody using AI to do the job that's there and the same will be better than you at it. And where I'm getting to is ultimately do an assessment of what, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're in an organization, what it is that good is and what do you actually need to accomplish, because don't think about it in the form of sort of a stack of blocks that are each a job. Right. A lot of these jobs are going to be fundamentally redesigned because the organization itself is going to be fundamentally redesigned. So there's a lot of value in just going back to the classics of like design thinking, best principles, and product management and those sorts of things, because that's the foundation that then you should go tinker with, get a pro version of ChatGPT or Claude and get comfortable using it and use it as a resource. My dad would always remind me that we had the encyclopedia upstairs. I should go check that rather than asking him the question. And then we used to say, have you checked the internet? And now you should just build a habit of, as you're preparing for anything or doing research or just thinking through problems, think it through with your augmentation, with some flavor of AI assistant. And then there's the tinkering around prototyping and building, right? Replit, Base 44, Lovable, Bolt, Claude Code. There are plenty of them now. Just pick one. And
exactly.
And just explain an idea, learn why your prompting is imperfect or bad or simple at first, and just get better.
You just have to keep playing with it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I love this example that James just gave where he said, I use my ChatGPT to help me plan a motorcycle trip, but you have to be careful because it said I could ride from North Illinois to Arkansas in one day and hit my max limit of 250 miles. But in reality, it's like 700 miles. So as I always say, even ChatGPT is like a really, really, really smart intern, but we still have to underline and bold the word intern. So you still have to check the work that's coming out of it.
I think James just being timid. He should do it. I think he can do that in a day. Come on, James.
Just never say no. It.
Yep.
Just I actually buy the 700.
That's right. I mean, what could go wrong? This seems like a great plan. My most recent LinkedIn course actually was AI agents and agentics for small, medium businesses. And I break it down to be like interns. And you're absolutely right. I had 3 different types of interns. The one that was really good at just following rules and doing basic things and always did it right. And then there was one that could be a little bit more creative and interpretive. And then there's a third that is just a free spirit and just can just make stuff up and it's great. And so the point was that free spirit is sort of interesting, but you wouldn't want them in your finance and accounting department or your HR or payroll department. Or so you need to understand the capabilities of all these different interns in your life and know how much remit and freedom to give them. And that also is training yourself to be sort of non-zombie-ish, to be that augmented human and know where it can serve you well and where you can serve it well.
Well, and it just goes back. Judgment. If the AI is saying you can do the impossible, maybe we need to use our judgment. Really?
Yeah. Which
and look at it again.
Right. And you've got it and bring that context to work. And yeah. And that's where we also need to train the younger workers, the next generation, to still bring their judgment to work and not just tune out and turn off, because then that could become pure chaos. And it'll be a lot of fun to watch as I retire and head off into the sunset. So,
oh, it's so true. Okay, Ian, for anybody that's joining today that is just like, yes, I love what Ian's talking about. I love what he's saying. I want to keep learning from him. Where is the best place that people can find you and keep learning from you?
Awesome. That's if they feel like I'm useful, I would be honored. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, as you said. I loved the ability to create courses on their library. It is so much fun and such good people, and I've loved the courses I've created. It's just me sharing the bumps, bruises, and scars I've collected over the last 15 years. And yeah, follow me there, connect, DM me, and I'd love to hear from folks. I'm going to be actually putting up more content over the next year as I sort of ramp up this startup I'm working on, and really emphasize this idea of the importance of AI plus people, better together, which is our tagline. So
I love it. I love that LinkedIn is the place that you can find Ian. And like Hiromi said, looking forward to watching more courses and more content from you, Ian. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Hey, this is a blast. You made a point before about unsubscribing from some people's blogs because they were totally being written by robots. And while I will argue that some people themselves may actually be robots, so there's some more bland people, but you are far from a robot, and your enthusiasm has always been so energizing, and I love what you do. And thank you so much for giving me the chance to join you on Live with Kim and to have coffee in the middle of the day.
Thank you. I love it. I know we got some questions. Yes, there'll be a recording and replay of this session on YouTube and LinkedIn and also podcast networks. So never fear if you feel like one of your friends would really benefit from this conversation. Ian and I agree. They probably would benefit. So feel free to send it on over to them. And we want to thank you for being here live, James and Aaron and Jeff and Christy and Hiromi and Shelby and Molly and Giacomo, and just, yeah, thank you guys for being here live. If you're listening later, we appreciate you too. We hope you have a great rest of the weekend. We are here every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can go to getcoffeewithkim.com and see our full schedule and get a calendar sort of reminder that we're going to be here. And like Ian said, our inboxes are open. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much.